Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 10 o'clock here, Calgary, Alberta, Saturday morning, August the 28th, and I'm happy to be here. This is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open if anybody would like to sit in there. And, I'm just looking around at what's going on around the world here, and articles popping into my inbox steady, from different news agencies around the world, and talking about, human rights issues, human rights abuses, and, what's happening out there. It's horrific. It's absolutely, completely horrible. But I do this because I am studying child rights, human rights, and I'm in between courses. So I continually study, even though I'm not in classes. I'm not enrolled right now in any courses, just because I can't afford to go back to school. Well, when my income changes and I finally get to go back to school, I'll be going back to school. And I thought, well, I need to continue to study. And so, this is what I do. I continually look at this stuff and see what's happening. And I just wanted to do one show a week on the worldwide epidemic of child abuse and human rights abuses. It's not only just nationwide, Canada, the United States. This is going on, obviously, as we know, all around the world. And I wanted to just devote one show a week, to talk about some of the stuff that's happening out there that is just so horrific. I'm so glad there's people out there trying to stop it. But, we all need to get involved, and nationally and internationally. And I think we need to fix the problems in our own country first. I really believe that. We owe our own citizens that much. But in the meantime, I don't think it's a good idea to turn a blind eye on the world's societies, because I believe, we are all brothers and sisters on this planet, and until we start to feel that way, there's never going to be any real help for people, you know what I mean? I care about all people around the world, so not just one group here and there, this is something that sits right at the very core of my heart and my soul, So I just wanted to bring out information that I find, on Saturday mornings about what's going on worldwide. I found a bunch of articles that I kind of thought would be good to touch on this morning. So I'm glad that you can be here. Thanks very much for tuning in to all my shows. And I want to start with this first article here. Let me just bring this up. There's so much, actually. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. There's these articles that I found that I wanted to touch on this morning are actually really horrific, and it's just barbaric, the way people are treating each other in these other countries. Bad enough what's going on here in North America. You see by my other show page, by my show page there that I have, a couple different shows. Child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention is up to us, which is based on North American issues. What's going on locally and within our own countries, within North America. And one child abuse survivor to another, that's just my own personal stuff. I talking as a survivor to other survivors, or to people who have an interest in helping someone that they know is a survivor of child abuse, or, just wanting more information about what goes on behind the scenes in an abusive home, right? And so, I'm covering this stuff all week, but I don't do a whole lot of stuff internationally, and that's why I thought I'd do the one show a week on that. And I wanted to first, let's look at it's from Reuters, AlertNet. It's an article that I found. It's just recently published, actually. August the 26th, this came out from Reuters, Thomson Reuters Foundation, AlertNet, alerting humanitarians to emergencies. And this is the kind of stuff I have popping into my inbox, because I wanted to go international when I first started about 3.5 years ago, deciding to get involved instead of sitting on the couch. It was in my heart to get involved internationally to help people around the world, especially in Afghanistan, and so the children and women, right? And so, but then I thought, man, there's no sense in getting involved internationally if I'm not going to be involved nationally, and so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, to try to help, if I can, the whole world instead of just one area. But I am very much, nationally trying to get involved locally within my own city and province here in Canada, as well as nationwide, and all around North America. So this article comes from Reuters, August 26, 2010. It's written by Joanne Allen, and it says, U.S. vows help in fight against Congo sexual violence. Washington, August 25th, Reuters. The United States will help any effort to bring to justice rebels accused in the horrific mass rape of women and children in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said on Wednesday. Mass rape of women and children in the Congo. This is really just ridiculous. This article is not very large, but I just wanted to touch on it. Rebels from the Mai Mai militia and Rwandan Hutu FDLR, who occupied the town of Luvungi in North Kivu province from July 30th to August 3rd, raped and assaulted at least 154 civilians, according to UN figures. It says this horrific attack is yet another example of how sexual violence undermines efforts to achieve and maintain stability in areas torn by conflict but striving for peace, Clinton said in a statement. So from July 30th to August 3rd, that's not very many days. These rebels from the Mai Mai militia and the Rwandan Hutu FDLR raped and assaulted at least 154 civilians. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. I can't even get my head around that. You know what I mean? Like, why is this happening in this world today? This is so barbaric. It's just a lack of education is what it is. These people are brought up so ignorant with no brain cells. You know what I mean? They just are not really functioning human beings. They're just like animals, right? Because anybody that can do that is an animal in my book. Actually, I don't even want to lump them in with animals. Animals are so much better than that. Animals are good, They were put here for a reason, as we all were. These people, they're not even animals. I mean, that's, sorry I even said that, because I'm very much a promoter of animal rights, and I love animals, and of all kinds. I mean, I just absolutely have a lot of respect for the animal kingdom. These people are monsters. Let's just call them that. These people are monsters. They are barbaric monsters. That's the only thing I can think of to call them that's polite on my radio show. So, they need something done with these people. How are we going to change, these people's minds, these rebels from the Mai Mai militia group and the Rwandan Hutu FDLR, whoever these thugs are, these criminal thugs, monsters, going around raping and assaulting 154 civilians at least. That's what they know of. There might be more. They just haven't probably come forward yet or found them. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is why the world is upset about this stuff, and this is why millions and billions of dollars being pumped into trying to stop this kind of stuff. And I'm glad it is, because this is absolutely unacceptable. And one rape is absolutely unacceptable. But 154 civilians being raped, that's extremely, absolutely unacceptable. It says the United States will do everything we can to work with the UN and the DRC government to hold the perpetrators of these acts accountable and to create a safe environment for women, girls, and all civilians living in the eastern Congo, Clinton vowed. And the United Nations adopted a resolution last year recognizing the importance of preventing and responding to sexual violence as a tactic of war against civilians. Clinton said it was now time for member nations to go beyond that with specific steps to protect civilians against sexual violence and prosecute those who commit such atrocities. That's right. I mean, I hope they can round these Mai people up and these, Rwandan Hutus up and you do something with them. Put them on an island somewhere, let them kill each other off, whatever. But, don't allow them to continue to do what they do. And will they ever change their mind about their behavior? Probably not, because there's, like I said, they're lacking brain cells. They're just so uneducated and so, barbaric and monsterish in their behaviors. Would they ever be able to think normally as a normal person? I doubt it. I seriously do. We're dealing with people who are sick, extremely sick, right? It said that Clinton said it was now time for member nations. Okay, we read that. The United Nations has a peacekeeping force of nearly 20,000 members in the Congo. A UN spokesman said the peacekeeping force only heard about the incident in the eastern province more than a week after it happened. And, that's just the whole thing. The Congo, 20,000 UN peacekeeping forces in the Congo. What are they doing? Hanging out all in one group in one section of the Congo, Like 20,000, what are they doing? All hanging around playing poker and, kicking back and drinking pop. And, I mean, they should have people stationed all over the place over there in little units, not too small units because they got to be able to defend themselves from these criminals, you know what I mean? But the thing is large enough sections should have enough people in them that this could be prevented. Like, I can't even believe this is actually happening in their own countries. Their own governments need to step up and take the responsibility for this. This is their responsibility. These government leaders, they're so corrupt and they have to be, or they won't survive. If they're not corrupt, they'll just be killed. So they have to be corrupt in order to maintain anything over there, because it'll be taken away, they'll be killed. So there's reasons for that. But the thing is they need to seriously change what's going on. And I really believe education is key, and the younger generations are going to have to come up and change their own countries. That's all there is to it. The old people, the older generations are going to have to die off, like I've said before, because you can't change these people's minds. These 30, 40, 50-year-old men especially, and even some women who would agree with what they're doing and think that it's okay to do these things. You can't change their minds. They're too sick and they're too warped to even begin to even think that that's wrong to, rape and hurt and maim 154 people. So that's just, something's got to be done, right? But this is just one article, and this is what's happening around the world, and that's why I'm talking about this. We have to talk about it. It says the world body said Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was outraged by the attack and dispatched a top official to Congo on Tuesday. The United Nations did not spell out the precise mandate of the mission. So this was reporting by Joanne Allen and edited by Peter Cooney. So that's just one article on it. I'm sure there's lots out there now about it, but absolutely horrible. 154 people raped in just a matter of a few days, and nobody could help them. There was no help for them. And with a presence of 20,000 UN peacekeepers right in the country, what are we paying these people to do? What's the government, what is the world, paying these guys to do? What are they doing, just sitting around? No, there's just something wrong with this picture, right? It's really bad. And, of course, we're talking about countries that are so backward and so far behind the times, right? I mean, they need to come up with everybody else, and that's why education is the key. And we're going to have to educate their young people. Their young people are going to have to see that the rest of the world does not tolerate this stuff. The rest of the world is fighting against this stuff, and that it's not okay, right? And so if we can't change these young people's minds, because the old people, we may as well write them off. They're written off. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you can't change somebody who's grown up for 40 years thinking a certain way, doing atrocities against people, living a life of, it's either kill or be killed, take or it will be taken from you. These people grow up, and I'm sure because I grew up abused, so I understand this whole thing. It's like, I'll hurt you first before you hurt me. That's the basic. But what it comes down to, the basic element of what is going on in their hearts, right? They've grown up in such, desperate situations, right? No water, no food, a lack of medical services, there's no education, period. I mean, if they make it to a couple of years through school, they're doing pretty good. And, it's not that they would be abused as children. I mean, so many of those people in the countries love their children, but they grow up with an attitude that if I don't take, it will be taken from me, so I'm going to be the taker. If I don't kill, I'll be killed, so I'm going to be the killer. And they're so backward and so ignorant, because there is no education, that they join these militia groups thinking, yeah, this is what we need. I'm going to be one of these guys, because I don't want to be the one on the other end of the gun, say. Like, I don't want to be the one sitting there being shot and raped, so I'm going to do the shooting and the raping. And I mean, this is really extremely bad, right? When whole countries are youth are coming up to the choice, to make that choice, to either be sitting on the other side of the gun or to be raped and pillaged, and taken from their families and killed, or will they be the ones to be pointing the trigger, right? Just for a bowl of food and a few bits and goods of whatever they can steal from people. So this is the choice they face, right? They don't have any other choice, because it's either live or die in those countries. There's no, I don't see those countries as being countries where people just exist and have a nice life, And I mean, some villages do if they aren't affected by these militia groups, these criminals. But the thing is they affect a large portion of Africa. There's 54 countries in Africa or something like that, 52 countries or 54 countries in Africa. So Congo is just one country in Africa, right? And Africa has problems, you know what I mean? And it's because there's no education. You leave a country to their own demise with no education, and the government, the people running these countries, and there's no national government. It's not like the United States where every state has, their own state level governments, and then there's the president, and there's the actual government that runs the whole thing. There's none of that over in Africa. Each of these countries has their own presidents, they have their own leaders. They don't come together. There's no nationalistic feeling about Africa. I mean, they war against each other all the time. They're just backward people who didn't come up with the rest of us, right? So, and this is, who do they have to blame really but themselves? Honestly, you can't sit around and blame other people. Oh, it's their fault, it was these guys' fault back in 1800s, or it was these people's fault in the 1700s or 1600s. I mean, you think about Egypt, in Africa there. Egypt was really one of the most powerful countries in the whole world way back when, and look at what they achieved with the pyramids and the hieroglyphs, and they were the first people to the people that came before the Egyptians, the Hyssops. I can't remember exactly which name they were, but they developed language, and started writing on papyrus, papyrus, whatever you want to call it, the paper that they created. They were the first people to actually start writing things down. I think I've done a little bit of study on this stuff. But the thing is they were brilliant. They had medicines. They had things that the rest of the world didn't have. They had a system of somewhat of a government. They were looking after their people somewhat, right? I mean, for being back in 4000 BC or whatever, 3000 BC, they were still doing pretty good. People had pretty good life. They were subservient to the queen or kings, of Egypt. The what do you want to call those guys? The pharaohs, right? So, I mean, look at that portion of Africa's history. And you think about how amazing Africa, had been back in its heyday, back when things were pretty good for Africa, and the people were really quite brilliant, right? They were some of the smartest people on the planet, developing all the different things that they needed, the wheel, things to move those stones, to put those pyramids together. They were really, really smart people. And to see their country now, you just look at it and you just go, what happened, man? Why did they let themselves go so far, as a people and as a country? Because Africa's rich with history, and the Africa's latest history, man, we don't even want to know about it. It's just filthy, it's disgusting, it's murderous, it's heinous, it's criminal, and it's disgusting, right? The behavior that they are, why? Because these people don't even know their own history. They don't probably even realize that they don't probably have any knowledge of the Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. It's a lack of education. The people that don't live up near the Nile and live up, the Nile kind of travels all the way through Africa, but the people that don't live up by Egypt there, the people that live in the southern or the western regions of Africa probably don't even know about Egypt because they don't have any books. They don't have any education. They're being brought up by grandmothers whose daughters died from HIV. And so these people that are growing up in Africa right now and are 20, 30 years old have no knowledge whatsoever of anything, really, except for they're very superstitious. They think sleeping with babies will cure HIV. They rape and pillage. They sleep with too many different sexual partners and pass around all kinds of diseases. They're basically come down to an existence of a very low existence. And whose fault is that? It's the government's fault, as far as I'm concerned, of each one of those countries for not standing up and saying, we're going to band together, we're going to start changing this for our people, and we deserve better, our people deserve better. Look at our history, our rich history. We were once the most powerful country in the whole world, the most powerful region in the whole world, and look what happened to us. Sheer degradation because their morals are just gone. They have no morals. They don't even know what they are, and I know there's mothers there that love their children and fathers that love their children. They're people like you and me. They wake up in the morning and they look at their children are they're starving, and they're just scratching for peanuts in the ground, and they're like, and they're worried because their wife might be raped while they go off to work, the men. They probably think, what's going to happen today when I go off to look for a few bucks, or for a handful of food? What's going to happen to my wife while she's out picking up wood? to make charcoal and stuff, because they do that. They burn wood and they make charcoal and they sell it. And then, they can be raped, right, at water holes trying to get water, because there's no good water systems except for where they've been placed around by good people around the world who have put water systems into there and helped them to get water. It's really sad. These people are just like you and me. They wake up in the morning with the most horrific situations going on, waiting in lines for food and stuff. I do a lot of study on this stuff, right? And so, I don't just look at the numbers. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes to see what it would be like to be them and to live in their shoes one day. Could I make it? Probably not. My God, this is really sad. So their governments, as far as I'm concerned, their governments are to blame. And the rest of the world, we're pumping millions of dollars into this thing, and it isn't changing because the governments are not willing to help their own people. But does that mean that we should just pull out and forget them? No, because here we have 154 people who've been raped the other day by 2 militia groups who just going around doing whatever they want. Where does it stop? Killing people just because they're killing? Like what? We just got to round all these people up and kill them? Is that the answer? 2 wrongs don't make a right. What we have to do is change this by education and get that education into these countries, not just there, but around the world. Russia, we're talking, China, we're talking everywhere. The Middle East, not so much the Middle East, but the Southeast area and Afghanistan and places like that are really lacking, and the people are suffering. It's really all about education. And mainly they kill off their teachers. These militia groups, they don't want anybody getting any education. That's what happened to the Brits. The Brits didn't want anybody getting any education either. So then they had shipping people off to Australia, and they shutting everything down because they didn't want anybody to know. Shut the education down for the average person. You can keep them under your thumb, can't you? So education is the key in every instance, right? It's the search for truth. It's the search for knowledge. It's the seeking of what can we do to make this better. If you can shut that down, then you can control the people. And you can make them do whatever you want them to do and live the way that you want them to live. Because as long as you can keep control of them and they don't know any better, you got it made. And that is what's going on in Africa right now. And around the world, even Afghanistan. But Afghanistan, they're trying to change it. So is Africa. There's a lot of people in Africa who want education, and they work really hard, and they, leave families behind to try to get an education, some of these men and women, and they know that their family left behind could be slaughtered and murdered, but yet they think, I've got to do this for my country. I've got to do this for my people. I give those people a lot of credit, and I give them hats off to them because they're leaving their families behind just in sheer desperation to try to change things in their own country and to try to get an education to help the people in their own country. So my hats are off to them, and I just wish them all well, right? So here's another article I wanted to look at, and this is about Uganda. So these are both taking place in Africa, but they're both important. Well, this one actually is for. Actually, I don't want to cover this one. We might go through this one next week. I wanted to look at this one about the albinos in Africa. This is such a huge problem. This is just one example of why these people, what's happened to them, and over the years how ignorant they are that they would do something like this. And let me see if I can find this here. I would like. It's about these albinos. People are killing albino children and people and just dissecting them, and it's called a trade in albino body parts moving south. And I think we got to cover this here, man, because this is really something. And this is Swaziland, trade in albino body parts moving south. And this is from the IRIN, Humanitarian News and Analysis, a project of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. This is what pops into my inbox all the time, right? This is Mabani, 25th of August. This is just the other day. 25th of August, 2010, it says, the recent killing of 2 albino Swazi children within a few days of each other is raising fears that the practice of murdering people with a genetically inherited condition to sell their body parts for muti, which is medicine, is migrating southwards. So they kill these albinos, and dismember their bodies and sell their body parts for medicine, because this is how ignorant they are. They believe that these something medicinal properties of these albinos, so they just kill them, dismember them, and sell their body parts. I mean, these are human beings. This is a human life we are talking about here, and if this doesn't outrage people, then we got a huge problem in society, and there's a lot of sick people out there, because this just bothers me to no extent. It says incidents of albinos being dismembered have been well documented in Tanzania and Burundi, among other countries, in a trend driven by the belief that those suffering from albinism caused by the body's inability to produce the melanin pigment that helps the skin protect itself from the sun's damaging ultraviolet rays have a special potency when included in concoctions that claim to bestow almost everything from political power and wealth to curing HIV and AIDS. Yep. So they get a hold of these albino children, cut them up, chop them up, kill them, chop them up in little bits and pieces, and then sell them off to people who use them in these concoctions. I mean, they're witches. They're like witch doctors, right? They're witches, right? And thinking that this will bring political power and wealth or cure HIV or AIDS or any number of things, right? And this is sick and it's sad, and I just think that these people need to come up with the rest of the world and get some education and, stop doing this kind of garbage and start realizing that this is just useless and senseless killing and dismembering of people who have a condition, albino. Well, it says last week, Benelli Zumalo, 11, was shot and carried away by a group of masked gunmen next to the Sigaduma River in northern Swaziland's Shiswalini region in front of 20 adults and children. So right in front of people, they just shot this 11-year-old girl. They shot this 11-year-old girl right in front of a bunch of people, and then her decapitated body was discovered a few hours later. The killing came a few days after another albino child of similar age was found murdered and mutilated in the same region. So this is what they're doing. The child's father, Luke Zumalo, told local media, "I wonder why albinos are targeted, because they are just humans like us and a gift from God." There's the father, I mean, this is absolutely crazy. I guess if you have an albino kid, you got to keep them hidden away. You'd have to almost not let anybody know you even had an albino child over there, because they would be target for being killed, kidnapped, killed, and sold off in body parts. This is absolutely sick and wrong. They should get those albinos out of that country, is what they should do. And bring them someplace where they'll be looked after and given care and brought up properly. This is absolutely ridiculous. Constance Doobie, a child welfare counselor based in Manzini, Swaziland's second city, told IRIN, "We have never had these ritual killings specific to albino persons before, but we've never had an AIDS epidemic causing so much panic either. 1 in 4 Swazis between the ages of 15 and 49 is living with HIV at 26. At 26.1% of the world's highest prevalence. Okay, so this is 26.1% of the world's highest prevalence is in the Swaziland, because in Swazis, 1 in 4 Swazis between the ages of 15 and 49 is living with HIV. So that's pretty bad out of a population of 1 million, it says here, of which 2/3 are in a state of chronic poverty. So this is really bad. Swaziland, I don't know a whole lot about Swaziland, but it doesn't sound like a very good place to me. No longer exempt from albino killings. It says the government and NGOs have embarked on HIV/AIDS education programs, but many people still have deep-seated superstitions. Multi-murders of children are not uncommon, and various theories explain the rise of child rapes, such as that with sex with virgins cleanses one of HIV and AIDS. But the recent targeting of albino children has opened a new chapter in the Mountain Kingdom. At Swaziland Action Group Against Abuse, an NGO opposed the sexual abuse of women and children, said in a statement that the country could no longer claim immunity from the ritual killings that are most common in East Africa. So this is really bad. And, this article is quite large, and you can read through there. I hope you will go check it out. It's from IRIN, IRIN, Humanitarian News. It's just ridiculous. I have about a minute left. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you being here and, hanging out with me today. And, just check my show page. I'll be back on tomorrow, Mount Bethel Christian Worship and Fellowship, just for a Bible reading and just to give a testimony of what God's doing in my life. And also, I'll be back on next week. You can check my show page out and all that. Have a great day, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And, make sure, you get the support groups are doing good things. I support the the Canadian International Learning Foundation, the CILF. And they are out of Ottawa, Canada. and headed up by Ryan Aldred and a whole bunch of awesome volunteers who are working to promote and to fund education in Afghanistan as well as Uganda. And I support them 100%, back them up, and actually do a little bit of volunteering with them. Not too much lately because I'm so involved with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. But I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And so I hope you will check our website out as well at http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And just get the information, and start helping out groups who are doing some good work. Take care, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.